Salvete omnes. If you'd like to support the channel along with these patrons, I'd really appreciate the support. There's a link in the description box below. The second declension in Latin becomes a little more complicated because now there are two genders, masculine and neutral. If you remember, the first declension nouns were all feminine except for a handful of words that were adopted from Greek. The other difficult part is that there are more irregularities in the second declension than in the first. We'll start again with the nominative or subject form. Maximus est discipulus. Maximus is a student. You can probably see that the characteristic ending on second declension masculine nouns is us. Thankfully, the neutral verbs are not very different. Vinum est bonum. The wine is good. Here the characteristic ending is And remember, the subject is the doer of the verb, but est is like an equal sign, so the endings have to match with whatever the subject is. So if we say, the student is good, it would be discipulus est bonus. Now, as we saw in the last video, each noun has to change its form in order to indicate what role it is playing in the sentence. In order to indicate that it is the object, first declension nouns added an M. Second declension nouns follow almost exactly the same pattern as we can see in the next sentence. Discipulus librum scribit. The student writes a book. And since the neutral nouns already end in they remain the same. Discipulus vinum bibit. The student drinks wine. Pretty easy, right? But we have to go back for a second because librum is an irregular word. For all but the nominative and vocative forms, it follows the regular declination, but when it is the subject, it is liber, not liberus. Note also that although neutral nouns are exactly the same in both nominative and accusative cases as subject and object, this won't cause confusion since neutral nouns can't act usually. In other words, if we see a sentence like vinum bibit, we know that there is an unstated subject and this means he or she drank wine, since wine cannot drink. Another irregularity can be found in the word puer, or boy. In this word, it is as if the US was lost, because the rest of the endings conjugate as if this word were pueros, as in the following. Discipulus librum puero dat. The student gives a book to the boy. Here, puer is the recipient, so it changes to puero, giving it the meaning to the boy. The second declension is a little less confusing than the first declension because the dative and genitive cases are not the same. The following sentence is not ambiguous. Discipulus librum pueri legit. The student reads the boy's book. In the singular, the E ending is like the apostrophe S ending in English. The ablative case is the one that can get confusing because it's the same as the dative, and because it has so many different uses. But the way to remember this form is to remember the statement, in wine there is truth, which is in vino veritas. Vinum changes to vino in the ablative form. So we have filled up the singular declination chart for all but one case, the vocative. The vocative form is the same as the nominative for all but masculine second declension nouns. The famous phrase from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar can help us learn this form. Et tu, Brute? You also, Brutus? Caesar says this after he sees that his friend Brutus is one of his assassins, and the phrase is often alluded to in literature when there's an unexpected betrayal by a friend. But there's another irregularity. Words that end in ius, ius, change to a long E. For example, to call out "O son," we would say "O fili." There are two more forms that end in a long E for the second declension. The plural nominative and vocative form both have descending. Discipuli sunt pueri. The students are boys. Remember to change the verb when the subject is plural. The accusative plural is almost as easy as the first declension because it also ends in s, as in the following. Pueri libros scribunt. The boys write letters. As a reminder, except for third declension neutral nouns, all nouns in the accusative case end in m when they are singular and s when they're plural. The genitive or possessive case is a little weird because it's longer than most endings. Pueri libros discipulorum legunt. The boys read the students' books. But here's something weird. The first and second declension are the same in the plural ablative and dative cases. They're all is. So for the dative we have pueri libros discipulis stant. The boys give books to the students. And an example of the ablative is cum pueris ambulo. I am walking with the boys. The ablative case is most often used with prepositions like cum, e, and ab, and especially with prepositions denoting location. Finally, there is one difference in the plural for neutral nouns. The nominative, vocative, and accusative are all the same, just like in the singular case, but in the plural they are all a. So we have in Gallia vina abundant. Wines are abundant in France. And for the next sentence, note that pueri can also mean children. Pueri dona amant. Children love gifts. You see, dona and its verb form donare are where we get the word for donation in English. There you have it. And remember, the best way to learn a language is through comprehensible input. So check out the lessons in this playlist where you will acquire these forms organically. See you next time. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and if you can, help support the channel on Patreon, where there are audio downloads and transcripts of each dialogue and story. Gratias!